overcome. Yes, we can.
Person, woman, man, camera, TV.
What the f*** is wrong with you?
Well, welcome to What the Franklin. I'm your host. Quiet. There you go. Doesn't want to stop. There it is. All right. I'm your host, Franklin.
Hi, I'm Nikki Medoro.
Nikki Medoro. Are you hearing an echo?
I'm not hearing anything. I think it's in your head.
Oh, you know what? I think I have me on twice over here. Let me see if that's better. There it is. Nope, I'm still hearing an echo.
Uh-oh. I don't hear anything.
I don't know. Let me go in and out. Stay right there.
Okay.
Right. If I leave, can we still do this?
Sure. I'll just figure it out.
Let's start the show off with this.
Tonight, let's all agree once again to stand up for seniors.
Stand up for seniors.
There we go.
All
I'll stand up for you. Don't worry about it.
And come right back. Everybody stay right there.
All
That is
right.
Nikki Medoro. I did 5 years with her, and that senior thing was for her.
Exactly. Thanks for joining us on What the Franklin on Really American. I'm really happy to be here. I don't hear an echo, though, but it could be in Chip's mind. There's a lot of things that are stuck in Chip's mind, and an echo is just the least of which. But we're going to talk about a lot of things today. Twitter, Nick Fuentes being back on. It's a bit shocking, but not shocking, right? That Elon Musk would say, yeah, sure. We'll allow neo-Nazi on. Free speech, unless you talk about something that, he doesn't want to talk about, which is the problem.
I had YouTube up at the same time. Can't do that. All right. Welcome, everybody. I know. That's Nikki Medoro. Nikki was a morning show host at KGO Radio, where we worked together at afternoons for about 5 years. And then she went on and did the morning show in the number 5 market in America, and she kicked ass. And always great to see you, Nick.
Oh, thank you.
Nice. Let's just here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about Trump's mental health. We're going to talk about Trump's Time magazine interview, which was frightening as hell, and which portends a dystopian future, to say the least, for our country, should he be somehow put back into power. And I say that because the only victory he can have is an electoral victory. He cannot win the popular vote. He lost by 7 million. Actually close to 9 million votes over the last 2 elections. We'll also talk about Twitter, and I've totally lost any fascination I had with Twitter.
Oh, no, it's not even the same. I don't even like going on there. I mean, I do to post the shows that we do, but other than that, it's a cesspool of idiots.
Yeah, it really is. And of course, in the economy, good news today, the 27th consecutive month, the unemployment rate was below 4%. This was previously recorded during a low employment period between 1967 and 1970. It's the longest period on record since 1951 to 1953. So when people talk about this economy and the GDP, we had a 4.5% growth last quarter. Trump never had one that was 3%, to compare. So anyway, a lot to talk about. Let's start with Trump's, before we get to the trials, because I think it's important, is to talk about his mental health and what that sounds like.
Is he crazy, really? Just this week, it was reported that an illegal alien, and you just look at this, what's happening.
It's not even funny. It is, and it's not, because I've been reading a lot and listening to a lot of psychiatrists and psychologists talk about this, and it's it's frightening, because he's lost. They don't know what it is, because nobody, doctors.
He makes things up because he likes to live in his own reality. It's
that's the other part. That's the evil part of him. I'm talking about. You never noticed,
man. I mean, I think that he seriously believes his own lies. I think he lives in this la world where everything he says is true and everyone's after him. I do. Yeah. People talk about Joe Biden being old. Donald Trump is literally delusional. He makes things up all of the time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've seen that. The Washington Post has been counting since 2016. I think we're up to close to 40,000 lies or misstatements, and not misspoken, but misstatements, intentional.
Yes.
But I think that, when you talk about, we've all seen old people, when they get to a certain point and they start to lose it, and they forget things. I mean, it happens to everybody. It happens, I mean.
And it's not funny. I mean, unless you want to be president of the United States, and then it's like scary.
Tragic, yeah. But I do think that whereas everybody was worried about Biden in the debates now, I think the one to worry about is Trump. I think if Biden was smart, he would just let him talk. No, seriously.
Yeah, you have a good point, because they always say if somebody's lying to you, just let them talk, and then they'll just totally keep backtracking and backtracking. But then it's
dig their own hole, as
they
it were.
dig their own hole. But there's so many people that like to be in that hole with Trump. They wrap themselves with the blanket of delusion, and they're like, see, this is what he's talking about, and it makes no sense. I don't know if I can just sit there and watch on national television a delusional human being argue nonsense forever and ever. I'd go click and I would never watch it. I don't know if the debate's needed. I don't know.
I mean, I wonder, as we talk about this, and by the way, this would be a good opportunity to welcome your comments, because the idea, we're going to do this each week at noon on the East Coast and 9:00 here in California.
Yeah.
Well, actually 9:07 in California. And when we're going to talk about these topics, and we welcome, your thoughts. There you go.
I see the comments. There we go. Okay, good.
Did you bring that up? Can you do that?
I could do that. Look.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh no, I can't click on them. I could just read them. You have to click on them because you're the head honcho in charge.
Yeah, I guess I am. But there is, I mean, what I worry about more than this, and we'll get to your comments in a second. I worry about what his administration will look like. There won't be any Secretary Espers or John Kellys in there.
No.
Right?
He's not going to surround himself with anybody intelligent. But remember, during his presidency, he had so many acting fill in the blanks because he kept firing people, and then people would get in there and they would realize who they were working for, and they're like, I can't do this anymore.
You know who his Secretary of Defense might be? I'm not kidding.
Leave Brittany alone. Leave her alone. The poor woman. I swear to God, she has a sprained ankle right now. She's still not talking to her mama. I mean, leave Brittany out of it.
All right, let's get a few of these in here. Also, we're gonna, in this half hour, we're going to talk about. Actually, before we get to your calls, let's do this right now, because right now across the United States there are serial killers. What if I told you there are a substantial number of serial killers that are also truck drivers?
Well, that makes sense. That actually does make sense. Okay.
That is the focus. That is the focus of a new book by the former assistant director of the FBI, Frank Figliuzzi. You've probably seen Frank on MSNBC. He and I just started a podcast. We just recorded one earlier today, and it's called Frankly. It's a hard look at America's soft spots. And it's been really interesting to do it. And he joins us right now a little bit to talk about what's going on across this country. Frank, say hi to Nikki. Nikki, Frank.
Hi, Frank.
Hi, Nikki. Yeah, I think Nikki and I went to different schools together.
I think we did.
No, I recall you from KGO and from CHIP. And yet, by the way, I am, just to be an echo chamber, I am really excited about the new podcast with CHIP called Frankly, because, CHIP and I are not very creative, and we figured we'd play on our first and last names.
Well, I am riding the coattails of the former assistant director of the FBI. However, I will say we did have an interesting show today, and what we came up with a great headline for the show. It's Trump versus Jesus, and that is essentially what's going on with the evangelical movement and what's been co-opted by his party. But not everybody's on board. And our guest was a former assistant secretary for terrorism under Trump, and essentially he's just had enough. She couldn't deal with it anymore. And she's, very religious, but just also very pragmatic about, where we're headed. Tell me this, where did you first learn about all these serial killers across the United States? When you were in the FBI, were serial killers a focus of the FBI, or was that like still kind of a local state by state thing?
So, it's interesting. If anybody's ever watched the Netflix series Mindhunter, that is an extremely accurate depiction of the nascent days and years of the behavioral analysis program in the FBI. Now, there's 112 TV shows about criminal minds and all of that, right?
You know, I
And
visited them once and they almost didn't let me out.
That doesn't surprise me.
you know, and seemingly every young person that approaches me wants to be a crime analyst, which, okay, you know, I kind of level set that for them. But here's the deal. Ironically, 25 years in the FBI, I never knew that the FBI had a highway serial killings initiative. It was after I left that I had a discussion with a woman who has led this initiative for 17 years. And she wants to get the word out. The FBI wants to get the word out that 850 women at least are known to have been murdered along our nation's highways at the hands of long-haul truckers, and that there are multiple serial killing long-haul truckers on the road right now. So if people are thinking, wait, has Frank written a book attacking trucking and that profession? The opposite is true.
And I can attest to that. I have read the book, and it's an amazing, amazing book. That there's heroes in there that are truckers.
Yeah, there are hero truckers. And I rode over 2,000 miles in a big rig.
This is my favorite part.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't my favorite part, Chip, because
no, I bet.
Sleeping in the berth in the top bunk in the back of the truck is not the Ritz-Carlton. But nor is peeing in a gallon jug when you have to. But
thank you for sharing. That was nice.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Too much information and more in the book. But
That's, by the way, that's not easy to do. Can I just say that? Right? It took a while to learn.
It's a hell of a lot easier for you guys to do it than for me to do
true.
it. So let's
That's
keep
true.
this in
That's true.
place. Okay.
While you're going 65 miles an hour. Yeah. Aim is important, as it was at the FBI Academy on the gun range. But listen, this is a book about three cultures. It's a deep dive into long-haul trucking, trafficking, and you say, well, what? Wait, sex trafficking? Why? Because the vast majority of these victims are sex trafficked women. I get deep into the trap of trafficking. I interviewed women who have been trafficked to truckers and have lived to tell about it. And these interviews brought me to tears, Chip. I don't cry easily. I think I've seen everything, but some of their personal accounts of the horrors and the tortures brought me to tears. And then the third culture, so we got trucking, trafficking, is crime analysis. So if you love true crime, if you want to know how the FBI works with local police to connect the dots to stop the killing, then this book is for you as well.
I have special empathy for what you've been going through in the last 5-6 years from the Trump people, and it pisses me off because I grew up with FBI people, and I lived 8 miles outside of DC, and everybody, I knew everybody in my neighborhood knew somebody that was, a bureaucrat, but a good bureaucrat. When I say that, people that get the work done, this in the FBI, it's the people that dot all the before computers, when they were doing these things. It was just like in Hidden Figures, where the NASA program, there were people working every day trying to put things together, to put it in front of people like yourself to make the job work. And I miss that. And you get attacked. I don't want to bring this up too much, but I think it's fair to point out that, you've done nothing but serve this country and the cause of helping people be safe in their lives, and only to be attacked by, Dan Bongino and some of these other idiots. And it's, that's why, I'm excited to do this with you, so people can hear more about what you do and about what the Bureau does. Nikki, on the other hand.
Total misfit over here.
Anyway, so the podcast will drop on Monday. This one, again, it's called Frankly, with Frank Figliuzzi and Chip Franklin, and I'm really excited about it. And you'll be dropping in on this show in the future too, and we'll talk a little more about it. Okay.
I look forward to it. Good to see you again, Nikki. Hope to see you soon.
Good to see you too. Definitely.
Take care. Have a good
Thank
weekend.
you so much again, Frank Figliuzzi. Oh, his phone just rang.
I know.
I bring up Brooklyn's comment here because
Yeah.
I do want you to smash the like button, and
Absolutely.
and if you're not a subscriber, subscribe. But I also bring it up because guess what? Brooklyn. For if you don't know him, it's Brooklyn Dad Defiant on Twitter. They read one of his tweets at the Hush Money trial.
Stop it.
Yep.
Really?
It's amazing. And, you know,
Good for you, Brooklyn Dad.
yeah, and he's, you know what, he would be on with us today, but he had to take his dog to the vet, and everybody knows what
Hey,
that's like.
everybody
So,
knows the dogs.
yeah.
Love my dog.
But anyway, so yeah, so it's fascinating, this trial. And you know, but let's do a couple more things here.
Okay.
And again, that's Nikki Medoro. Nikki and I are going to be doing this if she can tolerate me on Fridays, and she'll also be doing her 8-minute editorial pieces too. You can find them. And again, if you're not a subscriber, please do it. Also, you know, and this is, we have a Patreon here, and it's in the description of this below. It's how we were able to hire really, really good hosts. They got me from the cheap, but we have Kenny and Brooklyn and T-Pain, and this next guest is he is the CEO and editor of Really American, and he joins us here, and that is Justin Horowitz, who, by the way, catch this, Nick, just finished law school this week.
Congratulations, Justin. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
I've been listening to him whine and bitch about that for 3 or
It's
4
not
years.
easy, my friend. It is not easy.
No. Well, he had an interesting way of, he would go for
Yeah.
a while and just stop going. And then, you know, go back and have to find a way in. And you might even switch law schools somewhere in the middle of all that too.
I did. Took me 8 years.
But congratulations. It'll be worth it. And,
Thanks, Chip.
you know, although, you know what Figliuzzi told me earlier while I was talking to Frank about this, he goes, tell him to take the bar immediately, because that stuff
don't
just
lose all
washes
that.
out. I know. All right. So, by the way, so it's so cool about Brooklyn Dad. Explain how his tweet got read in that trial.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, it's introduced as an exhibit. So what they were saying is that Michael Cohen retweeted a tweet that Brooklyn Dad put up with Nelson Mandela and Trump, basically putting Trump in jail. And they were saying this is indicative of, you know, goes to Michael Cohen's credibility. He wants Trump in prison. How can he be an impartial witness? And so that's where they were introducing that.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. I think that when you look at this trial, and I think we all, you tell me what you guys think. I think we underestimated the power of these charges and what a conviction might actually mean. We've already heard from some polls that Republicans that are on the fence, that this would swing them at least to, if not to Biden, but to not vote. Nikki, you shake your head.
I have no faith in that. I think that the GOP have shown over and over again that they will kneel and kiss the ring of Donald Trump. And I will also say this. I think that we are underestimating how threatened some of these politicians are in their private lives. I don't underestimate the crazy that Trump has drummed up around this country, where people are getting death threats and they're like, this is just a job. If I have to vote for somebody, fine. It blows my mind also that the GOP just wouldn't get rid of the guy and find a true candidate to run. But MAGA is strong. And unless there's an act of God, I think that Donald Trump's going to be the leader of the party for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I agree. I have no faith in those polls. I think if he gets convicted, all those people who said, oh, well, it's a crap conviction, it's a motivated judge, a motivated jury. I do want to say, Chip, real quick, because this person put a super chat up asking you a question directly about November.
Okay.
Concerned citizen, do you think that democracy will prevail in November? And just want to highlight, we will put up your super chats if you have questions.
Well, and thank you. That's a great question. Well, first of all, we're not a democracy. As Winston Churchill said, democracy is mob rule. We are a democratic republic. So if we were a straight democracy, there would be no question about what's going to happen in November, because Trump would be defeated by 8 million votes, right? But we are a democratic republic with an electoral college that is way, way out of date. But it's something we got to deal with. You know, I once heard Swalwell on with Bill Maher, and Maher was complaining, and it's funny, you know, complaining about the Dakotas. He goes, they have 4 senators, but they have 9 people named Daryl and a couple coyotes, right? How come they have this much power? And Swalwell was, let's turn them blue. Let's go turn them blue, right?
Yeah, explain it to them. But I mean, their lifestyle, what they care about is different. I mean, the strength of our country is that we're so big. The weakness of our country is that we are so big and our interests are diverse. I mean, look at DeSantis, for instance, eliminating climate change in Florida by just erasing it from the state law and saying that he's going to criminalize lab-grown meat. to protect the cattle ranchers. Now, if you talk to a cattle rancher, he loves DeSantis. He loves that DeSantis said that. But if you talk to environmentalists and people that want to live on a healthy planet, they're like, what are you talking about? So how do you balance all of these interests when most people are just looking at their own bottom line and what their interests are? And that's difficult. It's hard to turn people blue when you don't understand their lifestyle.
When we say turn people blue, I think we got it. The Tip O'Neill once said, we were talking about this on the podcast with Frank. Tip O'Neill, former Speaker of the House, a Boston native, and one of the Irish Catholic mafia coming up with Kennedy, he once said all politics is local, which kind of goes along with, Carville's "It's the economy, stupid." There's some of these things that they hang around because they're true. Local politics is something that maybe, the cure to this is to get people involved, to get them to run for things, get them to run for school board and find out what it's like, to get out there and deal with issues. Obviously, the local issues, the president, in most cases, they don't affect your life anywhere near like a local representative. Ask Ohio, right? Ohio is still considering the idea that they can change their electors after they've been voted in if Trump should ask them to. I mean, I don't know if that's unconstitutional. I think it's still questionable as to whether or not Roberts and the Supreme Court would want to stop a state from being able to decide who their electors are, even if they subvert the will of the people. So to the question, do I think democracy will prevail? That's a direct Democratic vote.
Yeah.
So you're voting for the people who will vote for you in the legislature.
I think she's asking, though, do you think Biden's going to win?
Exactly.
And on that note, this poll just came out by Zogby, where he weighted swing state polls, and then he ran an electoral college. And here's what this looks like: that he's got it at Trump 294, Biden 244, if the weighted average polls were to hang on where they are right now, which is a scary.
Sure, it's scary, but there's a lot of people
I don't believe
also
polls.
saying there are a lot of people saying the polls are being weighted heavier to Trump now because of what had happened in the past, because and that these numbers could possibly be skewed. And you know what? To that point, these numbers were around in 2022 when the blue wave just. I mean, when the red wave did not appear and was destroyed, right? So, I mean, in that midterm, theoretically, the Republicans should have won a lot bigger, and they didn't, right? I think that looking at this moving forward, these phrases like democracy, let's just take that out and go one by one about what Trump is talking about, the possible deportation of 11 million Americans. And I say Americans because if you're from Central America, you're still an American, right?
Right.
But you may be undocumented in this country, but you're out there in the farm belt of the world. California is the 5th largest economy in the world, and it's because of undocumented people in those fields. Before we militarized the border in the 80s, they could go back home. They can't do that anymore, so they stay here. There's so many ironic moves we've made about immigration over the years that worked against it. Remember, Reagan wanted a path to amnesty. Why is that a bad idea? Why wouldn't we want to make these people citizens? Well, because Republicans think they're going to vote Democrat, and that's not necessarily true.
No,
Look at the refugees in Miami, hardcore Republicans from Cuba, hardcore. This is about, we can't grow without immigration. And this is the easiest and the best way to do it because many of them already have families and friends up here. As I was mentioning earlier, too, that the Central Americans and Mexicans are more Christian than the Christians that are supposedly here. They divorce at a rate 1/8 the number of other quote unquote Americans. And they also, they go to church. Whereas, so, I mean, these are the people that you would think, hey, we want these people in this country, but their only thing is they think they're going to vote Democrat. Well,
yeah, exactly.
If you keep saying this crap about them, that's what they're going to do. They're going to vote Democrat. So they're missing an opportunity, I guess my point. I don't know. I mean, I think that, that was just one of them, the Time Magazine article, which is, have you seen any, has he tweeted or talked about that? Have you guys
I
seen
haven't seen the article yet.
Oh, it's a frightening read. I did a video on it. You can see it in Really American. And I went through it piece by piece. And some of the stuff is just, for example, he wants to grab him by the posse comitatus by saying that that we can use military against U.S. citizens. Well, there's a law that's passed in Congress that says you cannot use the military against U.S. citizens. I guess my question is, how would the federal courts or the Supreme Court look at these things? If he decides that he's going to go ahead and just violate law and it goes to the courts, well, I mean, we had Clarence Thomas say in this immunity hearing that, well, some other presidents were parts of coups and they didn't get prosecuted. So, I mean, they're talking about it.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm just looking at it. I mean, he's talking about, possible migrant detention camps again. We wouldn't do very much of that. He's frightening. And I feel like time has diluted people's memory of what this country was like under Donald Trump. I mean, obviously COVID handicapped our memory a bit,
Right.
there was a
Good
huge
point.
pandemic. It kind of put a filter over some things, but I don't know how anybody can still forget January 6th. I don't know how anybody in their right mind, which is key, in their right mind can think that wasn't because of the rhetoric from the president and then wants more of that. I mean, remember the things that he did. I mean, the holding of the Bible it's just, he was so out of his mind and not a uniter. And that's what I think. That's why I think Biden, honestly, one of the main reasons he won, people were just tired of the divisiveness and they came out in force. And that's why I don't believe any of the polls. I do, to answer the person's question about democracy, which I think that person means, is Biden going to be reelected? I think that, yes, I think people are fed up with Donald Trump, but they're not loud right now. MAGA is really loud. MAGA has a megaphone, and I think that it skews people's belief about how likely Trump is to win.
Do we all remember about just the incredulity of what happened on January the 7th, right? The day after.
Yeah.
You got Ted Cruz calling it insurrection. I played the sound before. You got McConnell literally used their words, an insurrection. And then Kevin McCarthy have said that Trump was responsible. We all knew that then. And today, now they're saying that there's Antifa and Black Lives Matters or the FBI. And when I hear that, I'm at a loss as to how to respond. I really am.
Well, I think people do have a short memory. They
Yeah.
tend to vote based on emotion and their present emotional state. And honestly, my biggest concern going into November is somehow, given the events going on right now, which I know we don't really want to get too much into, may give people the perception that Trump is somehow a more stable hand, which Biden is like he is Mr. Stable, right? He's the stable hand over, and I think that's why people voted for him, is they were just tired of this totally destabilizing force in Trump. Every time he opened his mouth, there were riots and
Right.
racial divisions were crazy. But now with what's going on, frankly, on college campuses across the country, I mean, we saw the people on both sides of the protests chanting F Joe Biden the other day. And young voters kind of did carry Biden over the top to a large extent in 2020. Young voters finally came out and voted. Is that going to actually be significant? Are these protests going to die down, or are they going to get worse in the summer? And is it going to make it look like Biden is unable to control what is starting to look like a destabilizing condition across the country?
Did you see it, the Trump rally where he was encouraging them to say genocide Joe? Of course, working against the very thing he supposedly says, which is that Israel is in the total right here. I don't know. I don't think that I think, first of all, that these campus activities we're seeing are largely outside groups coming in, and the students make up maybe a plurality, definitely a minority of the number of people that are there. And I said this before, I'd be more impressed if they were doing this during spring break and not during finals. Right?
I don't know. I mean, there's going to be some serious consequences, but it does blow my mind a bit that if what you're saying, Justin, is true with some of these students and thinking that Trump would be better. Trump would not be better. He was literally just praising the police moving in, that it was a beautiful thing, taking over these protesters. And if they think that Trump would do something with what's happening in Israel, then they're fooling themselves and they're not educating themselves. Unfortunately, I do think that the protests have muddied whatever message they have about the situation over in Gaza, but there's a lot of time between May and November. And so I don't know how much, if this is still going on in November, maybe, but as of right now, I don't think so.
For the record, about 1/3 of all the comments today are congratulating Brooklyn Dad and just singing his praises.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I think about the people that I know and have been fortunate enough, and Nikki's included here, like broadcasters and people that do due diligence. It's been this is one of the positive parts of social media that we can do. We can be very discerning. There was a guy that Nikki and I used to work with, and we were on air during remember the mass shooting in Oregon, and Brett Burkhart was one of our. He was in the news department along with Nikki until Nikki became an opinion maker. But Brett would never get the numbers wrong. He would make sure before he went on the air that we had everything confirmed. We don't have that anymore. How many times have you been watching CNN and see them change in the middle of it, the number of actual fatalities, right?
Yeah.
Up and down and up and down. I think that there is a responsibility that goes, through social media and through regular media and across the board to get it right, to do the very best we can to actually get it right. And I think that's one of the frustrating things that we're dealing with right now.
Yeah.
Again, but back to Trump's mental health, and I was talking to my wife about this, Nick. I said that if we clearly know that he is suffering from early dementia,
Right.
and we saw a little bit of this, the end of Reagan's, period of time when
Absolutely.
he was beginning to lose it, and there were people close to him. We heard stories about, I'm pulling up a blank now on Nixon's Secretary of Defense, the people that surrounded him at the very end when it became clear that he was going to have to resign. They were worried about what he might do.
Yes.
Cripes, what about this guy?
Yeah, exactly. If you start from a place of crazy and
right,
let's be nice, like mean, right, and not sane. If you start there and then start losing your marbles, I have no idea where this road goes.
Where our Union was saved by the immortal heroes at Gettysburg. Gettysburg, what an unbelievable battle that was. The Battle of Gettysburg, what an unbelievable. I mean, it was so much and so interesting and so vicious and horrible and so beautiful in so many different ways. It represented such a big portion of the success of this country. Gettysburg, wow. I go to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania to look and to watch. And the statement of Robert E. Lee, who's no longer in favor. Did you ever notice that? No longer in favor. Never fight uphill, me boys. Never fight uphill. They were fighting uphill.
Nikki, you're right. It's just coming into his head and he's just talking. And
it's so weird. I mean, I really don't understand how people make fun of Joe Biden with a straight face. And that's your guy. Like, that's your guy. Really. I
don't know. I mean, I think that, that when people look at Trump, it's overwhelming. He says so many things that we can, and this has been, and I think this is Bannon actually saying that when something bad happens, say something that's bad, but not equally bad, and they'll stop paying attention to that. Right? I know
I have no idea what you're talking about. That's crazy.
Let me bring in our good friend Brooklyn Dad here real quick here and talk a little bit about Brooklyn. Say hi to Nikki.
Hi, Nikki. I think you're doing great so far. It's a pleasure to cyber meet you.
There you go.
And my buddy
so
Jetson
far
up
is the
here.
Keyword though. So far,
yeah, it's like the Brady Bunch over here. There we go.
Yeah, it is. To me, it's when we talk about, well, let's talk about this trial and what's happening here. From everything I've been reading, it sounds like the prosecution's done a good job in setting up their case. How did your tweet end up in this, and how did you find out about it?
Michael Cohen had reposted a tweet that I wrote. I was kind of upset that Donald Trump was kind of comparing himself to Nelson Mandela. He said, "I'll be your modern day Nelson Mandela." And I took offense to that.
How long was Mandela in prison? 25 years? I'll go
27 years. Yeah. And so Grant Stern actually texted me and he said, "Hey, did you see this?" And it was like in the middle of the afternoon. This had already happened in the morning because Todd Blanche, Trump's attorney, was trying to say that Michael Cohen should not be protected under the gag order because he's spending all of his time on social media making nicknames up like what was it? Shits Von Schitzenpants.
Yes, exactly. that was his nickname. Hilarious.
So he was presenting things like that, his TikTok videos and my tweet as evidence that Michael Cohen is steadily on the offensive against Trump. But Michael Cohen's not under any gag order, so he can say whatever the hell he wants. It's not helping the prosecution that he's, popping off like that. But so that's how I found out.
Well, that's extremely flattering, and again, I'm not surprised at all. I'm tell everybody whenever I mention your name, they're all impressed that I know you, and I said, "Well, that's cool."
Can I just say this? The coolest thing about that is that for years I was like replying to all of Trump's tweets because I wanted him to block me. That was the thing, right? If you didn't get a block from Trump, you were not one of the cool kids. And so I missed out. He never blocked me, and I never knew if he even saw any of my tweets. But now it's confirmed.
There you go.
That son of a bee heard every last word, every ill-intended word I threw his way. So, yay!
That's awesome.
Obviously, all of us kind of spent a lot of the last 5 years on Twitter and now X, whatever. I still call it.
I call it Twitter too, just to piss Elon Musk off. I just calling it Twitter.
Right. And it's when the latest is that he's going to allow Nick Fuentes back on.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you don't know who he is, just let me play a little bit of who this guy is.
But I would say that the Jews had better start being nice to people like us, because what comes out of this is going to be a lot uglier and a lot worse for them than anything that's being said on this show or has been said on this show. In spite of the fact that I have been bullied by the Jews and I have been oppressed and slandered and lied about and attacked by the Jews, I have been completely precise, for the most part, and even-handed and nuanced about my view about the situation. And I'm also a Christian.
Yeah.
Sure.
He says a lot worse that I don't want to replay for us. But, I don't know. First of all, he's very spectrumy, to say the least, Musk is. And I don't really, I think he showed his anti-Semitism in that one response to a tweet about, I'm pulling a blank now. What was that about? Remember?
About Jews funding like the woke stuff on college campuses.
Right. And to allow that and to allow anti-Semitism has never really gone anywhere. I mean, I think when you look at this in this country today, I think you still see it, you still hear it. Forget about what's happening right now, and even though this is really magnifying anti-Semitism in this country, we've seen it a long time. There was an announcer, a pro sports announcer here in San Diego, that his partner was Jewish, and he said something to him about, well, you guys know how to press a couple pennies together. He said he felt comfortable, then he got suspended.
Yeah.
And he never got they never put him back on, and he made a big deal out of it. Like how I'm being censored. Well, first of all, again, you can say whatever you want.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean there's no repercussions.
Right. He's not in jail. Nobody threw his butt in jail. That is the point. And it's so interesting how people still conflate that. You can say whatever you want. Musk could put Nick Fuentes back on his own platform that he owns. That's fine. You may lose advertisers, and he knows it. But it's not because your free speech is being violated. It's because people don't like your platform anymore. They don't want to see this nonsense on their feed. And so they're making a decision. And that's just the consequences for your actions or for, your statements.
At the same time, Twitter usage in terms of actual user minutes is at an all-time high.
Really?
And that's coinciding where it's just flooded with conspiracy theories. I mean, that's the reason anti-Semitism is anywhere, is when diseased, conspiracy-minded people start becoming a larger group of people. It's what you're bound to get.
I think the joke about free speech, about Elon being in support of free speech, it's only the speech that he approves of.
Exactly.
That's free. He tends to punish. He has started already punishing progressive voices and progressive accounts, left-leaning accounts, and promoting and giving platforms to people like Nick Fuentes. I get it. Our society does tolerate those. Yeah, every once in a while you see those Ku Klux Klan marches. You'll see Nazis lining up on a bridge overpass with their disgusting paraphernalia. But this is a private company, right?
Right.
Twitter is private. It's not like public space. You have a choice whether or not you want to allow your platform to be used to air that disgusting, vile crap.
Yeah.
Hey, let me throw in a pitch if I can for our Patreon. What we're trying to do with Really American Media is to provide a lot of different types of voices and platforms out here on this platform. And Nikki and I are going to be doing this on Fridays live at noon Eastern and 9 Pacific. But we're looking for a brand new, hopefully soon, real soon, a podcast with Brooklyn and one of our other people. As you well know, Tom Arnold joins me and who else is on with Justin? Are you on with us? Yeah, you're on with us. Yeah. And so we're expanding. And again, Frank Figliuzzi and I talk about this, and then we'll be dropping that on Monday as well. You got to watch that one too. It's Trump versus Jesus. It's awesome. But I guess my point is if you can, and if you have it within your wherewithal to contribute and help us with Patreon, we'd really appreciate it. You can see in the description of the show below how to do it. And thank you in advance. Thinking about of all the figures that have grown up in the Trump era, it's not always been real successful. And Fuentes is a sidebar figure. Most Americans have no idea who he is. Everybody knows this guy.
I will eat your ass.
Right.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
Sorry about that.
Give a warning, man.
That's by the way, that's his Tinder profile. But I think of the people that have used Trump to ascend to certain positions, and it's not worked out well for all of them. Look at Tucker Carlson is a perfect example of somebody that imploded, and the people they replace with him with Fox, and Fox of course has to deal with the Smartmatic issue still, $2 billion. I'm wondering if right-wing media would rather Biden win.
Ooh, yeah, to have that conflict. Yeah, I mean, probably. It's kind of hard to cover Trump if he's your guy and he keeps doing nonsense. I don't know.
You could at the same time say, does CNN want Trump to win? Because they'll get more clicks covering Trump all day.
But Fox is a bigger network now.
Yeah.
But CNN would love to be a bigger network. I mean, each side, unfortunately, has incentives for the other side to win. That's the tragedy of modern media and how it's...
CNN, though, I mean, still parades themselves as a news organization. Fox, they call themselves Fox News, but I mean, it's obviously a propaganda. It's Pravda in the United States. And but I wonder, though, I mean, I look at Newsmax and OAN and, how they've not been able to even cut into that share at all. I mean, we have a friend that watches Fox News. It's called Decoding Fox News. And that's all she does. And I
feel for her.
Yeah, right.
What a job.
What is the worst show on Fox in your guys' opinion?
I don't watch it. All of it. I have no idea.
Ingram, really?
Yeah.
Why?
I think she's the nastiest. I think she's really, I mean, it was Tucker before her, but I think she's really she's the one who wants this culture war. She's the one, I mean, she's the most Breitbarty out of all of them.
I don't watch enough Fox News to have. I don't watch any Fox News, but I do catch the clips on Twitter. And what I've been impressed by is there is a person on that show. I believe it's called The Five, and her name is Jessica Tarlov.
Yeah.
And she is absolutely brilliant. And I think it was a stroke of genius to have her on the show there, because not that it legitimizes their overall programming and their network, but it's nice actually to have a voice there that makes sense. And it's almost like you see the lion tamer with the whip and the chair. She's like that in that that room. She has them in check mostly.
Yeah.
And I hate Gutfeld. I find
Mm.
him. I find his humor to be. I hate to that's sophomoric. I used to do a joke about that, saying I when I was a freshman, I wrote a paper, and the professor said it was sophomoric, and I said thanks. Anyway, but but the whole point about this show is that she gets more airtime than anyone else.
Oh yeah.
You know,
She's really good at it too.
Hmm.
I just see the
Bartiromo-
clips.
Bartiromo seems like she has those moments. We all saw Steve
Hmm.
Ducey taking out James Comer when he had
Yeah.
him on. So they're I'm not saying
Bartiromo's nuts.
Yeah,
I'll
thank
push
you,
back on
Justin.
that one, yeah. He's-
I was like, nah, I don't know
she's
about
off
that.
the deep end, but Ducey, I think you're right. He's more of a traditional Republican than the other ones.
Exactly.
and I feel for his kid. I mean, I wouldn't want my kid in that press room, just getting beat up consistently.
He
Have
signed
you
up
heard the
for it.
rumor that they're possibly going to replace? And why can't I remember her name? The press secretary.
Corinne Jean-Pierre?
Karine.
Yeah. Remember we had her in studio, Nikki?
Yeah, she was really nice. I mean, they don't last necessarily through the entire administration. I think she does an okay job. It's a press secretary. You're the mouthpiece of the president, right? I mean, I love how people are like, oh, she's not doing it. She's the mouthpiece for the president of the United States. She says what he wants her to say, and
She's
has to take
just
the
not
criticism for
quite
it.
a Jen Psaki.
No, she's not. Jen Psaki did
Nobody's
a
a Jen
really, really
Psaki.
good job, and that's why she moved. What? She's on CNN now, right?
MSNBC.
MSNBC.
Yeah, nobody's a Jen Psaki. She was fantastic.
really
I've
good.
watched the politics, from probably from Clinton on down. She is one of the best press secretaries of all time, and every time you watch her, she's just she's on point. She's on point wherever she is. Yeah.
Well, I've been looking at the electoral map, and it's funny that and this is true. I saw Laura. Is it Laura Trump who was? I believe I saw her. Those are talking about calling Georgia a blue state, and I had to laugh. And yeah, please. Well, it did go blue.
I wouldn't call it a blue state.
I
That's
wouldn't
like calling
either.
Arizona a blue state. I mean, come on.
Although they did elect a Jew and a black for for U.S. Senate, so I mean that was crazy. But I mean, I look at Arizona now, and I'm thinking that this abortion ruling is going to help Arizona. Even though Florida has to have a supermajority to overturn their law, people are going to be in the polls, and the people they're going to come out in big numbers. And I got to think that right now, everybody's talking about Michigan and Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and their numbers. There's other states in play. I laughed when I saw the Trump campaign say that New York was in play. Did you see that? I saw some numbers there. It's 77-20. So I don't know what kind of play they're talking about.
Can I tell you something crazy, Chip?
Oh.
And you know how my brain works a little bit, because I do enjoy every now and then a good conspiracy, right? But that whole concept actually had me a little nervous, and hear me out. It's because I kind of watched the trends, right? And I'm going to go back to when they first started shipping migrant people first to Martha's Vineyard and to all these other places, and New York City. And we heard about it for the first couple of weeks that it was happening, and then you didn't hear anything about it, right? And then all of a sudden, then we start hearing reports that New York City is planning on handing out debit cards with up to $10,000 and with no identification requirements. And I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I got to get me one of these. but that reeked of mismanagement.
Mm-hmm.
And then I heard that Mayor Adams was deploying like a whole lot of cops and National Guard onto the subways. I was like, what the fuck is happening? Excuse me. Am I allowed to drop the F-bomb on this show? I guess we'll find out.
But that's all
I think
right.
electricity kind of took care of that.
Sorry. But I was like, what is happening? So what's happening is that there is some kind of narrative that progressives, that liberals don't know how to run things. And that had me worried a little bit. And then I started hearing Donald Trump say, oh, we can win New York. And I was like, what is going on?
I think that you have your point about the migrants moving into these kind of blue states is spot on, because everything that you said is correct. And I use the word genius not in a good way, but I will tell you, if there was a move that was genius to bring the problem of the border issue to these blue states, it is shipping migrants straight to them, because they are right. I will give Texas, not really Florida, Arizona, when you're on a border, your reality regarding the migrant surge is different than San Jose, California. It just is. So now all of a sudden, you're going to see, even if it's a minor amount, an influx of migrants, and you figure it out. Now what do you do? And I think they've made a good point. And we have to be fair about this. It's not fair for border states to only take the brunt of paying for all of this. It is true, but the way that Donald Trump wanted to do it, I can't support either. But I'm just saying.
Take that one step forward. These people, they stay married longer. They go to church. They take care of their children in a way that's demonstrably more compassionate. These Central Americans are the very people Republicans and Americans should be embracing coming into our country.
But there does need to be infrastructure to handle their initial introduction into the country. That
we're talking about
improved.
How many are they sending to Martha's? They're sending 500.
Exactly. I mean, but if it keeps going, and look at New York, you know what I mean? they're parking up right in front of people's buildings, and they're getting in shouting matches with New York celebrities. You know what I mean? So
I forgot to mention that there was that whole thing where students were being told not to come into school and to do school remotely because gymnasiums and other places in these schools were being used to house migrant populations. And, the last election cycle, I don't know if you guys remember how the GOP weaponized these school boards and that whole thing, and they get very loud. And the thing with the school board activism, the school board crisis actors, right, is they hit you at home. Basically, that's right there. That's home. School, kids, home. That hits you in a space where it matters. My kids, your kids, our kids, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why I got a bit concernicus about the notion. Like, I can't imagine on election night watching the results come in and everybody assumes New York is a slam dunk for Joe Biden. I cannot imagine the nightmare that would happen if we lost New York. That would be it. It would be over.
That'd be insane.
He's not going to win New York, but what Republicans are doing on immigration is brilliant, especially making people forget that they're the ones who wouldn't pass the bill that Republicans negotiated.
Exactly.
Well, Trump and Johnson.
Exactly.
I mean,
Trump is the one that got rid of it.
Yeah, Johnson's the one that could get it on the floor for the vote, But Lankford and others called him out, harshly. Romney, Lankford, Ken Buck, and then you hear Turner and others say the most incredible things that there's Russian propaganda in the GOP House, and they're spreading Russian propaganda. Of course, then Smirnoff giving the stuff to Comer and Jordan and having them use it to try to smear Biden. Everything here is hiding in plain sight, and with the economy strong, I really do believe. Back to that question, Justin, that they what were they called? The super
chat.
Thank you. I think Biden will win, and I in fact think Biden will win handily. And I think with more than 400 electoral votes. I believe it's going to be. No, I do. I really think. No, look at Brooklyn smiling.
Brooklyn's like, we'll see.
My heart thanks you for that.
I do.
I need that, man.
You look at states like Kansas. Now, it's going to stay a red state, but look how they have responded to abortion, restrictions. I think that abortion is more of a catalyst than the final issue. I think it gets people realizing that these even moderate conservatives, the Liz Cheneys, like this is not who we are, and I can't, we're going to have Adam Kinzinger on Frank and I show not in 2 weeks. And I'm excited about that, to hear,
Yeah.
and hopefully Liz Cheney too, to talk to, and maybe on this show as well. We should have them on here so you guys can hear and ask questions. I'm anxious to hear what their friends are telling them. We know how they feel, but what do they know? What are they hearing? And maybe, they don't, obviously they won't divulge names and all, but I gotta think that there's a never Trump force at play here, and we're just not seeing it and hearing about it.
Well, yeah, because they can't be vocal about it, because we know, back to what I was saying earlier, MAGA goes crazy. And so nobody knows what you do in the ballot box, right? So say whatever you have to get them off your back, and then go in the ballot box and do the right thing. That's what I'm hoping for.
Of all of us here, you're the one with young kids, Nick, and teenagers. What do they hear? What kind of questions? Like, what does Marley say to you?
Well, I mean, my daughter, has her snarky attitude about anything. In all honesty, she listens to me do my
What is
show.
she, 13?
She's 15.
15. Oh my God.
She's going to get her driving permit. Like, pray for me. But no, I mean, she's engaged, but it blows her mind sometimes, because she's on social media, the conversation that even younger kids her age are having about big issues. I would say her generation, climate change is one of the biggest things that they've been talking about. And even though they hate it, I would say mental health, with social media. But as far as politics, Biden and Trump, she just thinks that Trump's a moron because she listens to her mother. And that's
and if she listens to him too.
Exactly. Exactly. It doesn't take much. Doesn't take much at all.
Wow. Yeah, I think that I love this forum, and I want to get to a couple more of these here. This is not about blue versus red. This is democracy versus autocracy.
Yep.
True Americans, regardless of their party affiliation, will vote blue to save precious democracy. Autocrats not welcome. I agree with you.
I hope so.
I do think, the woman we spoke to this morning, Elizabeth Newman is her name, and her book is called Kingdom of Rage. She was Assistant Secretary for Terrorism. She thinks that obviously it'll be her biggest concern as a former Assistant Secretary for Terrorism, if Trump is elected, is avoiding World War III. Because of, there's a story today that is it possible that Russia and China are planning an attack on Taiwan? Because obviously, what would the United States do in that scenario, right? But what's the upside? Whenever I get to this, I always go back to the famous James Carville quote. It's the economy, stupid. If China starts something with the United States, who buys their crap?
We do.
United States, yeah.
Right. Why would you do that? Why would you cut off your economic engine? You think Russia's buying it? No, So, and then I saw, Russia's lost close to 400,000 people in this war. And inside that, I found that number
staggering.
That's what they do. They just throw bodies at every conflict. Peter Zeihan was talking about that. They have no problem just continuing.
Well, the families of those young men do. The families do. And that's a generation. That's like in the Middle East, where you kill somebody and you make 13 enemies, 15 enemies, 20 enemies, right? Because of, the I guess the familial sort of structure that these things take, that they take on. I guess when we look at, voters, obviously seniors and Social Security, I think are drifting, if not already to the left, because of people like Mike Lee, the senator from Utah, and others have been caught on tape talking about attacking Social Security and Medicare. I think that, that young people, despite what we're seeing on college campuses, aren't going to come out and vote for Donald Trump. Worst case, they stay home. I think that the left's advantage financially is huge. Well, how big is our war chest? Like twice or three times?
More than that, yeah. More than 3
and so look what that can do in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, even Ohio, possibly.
Although I don't know if you guys heard, there is a fundraiser that Trump is doing. I'm not sure if it's this weekend or next weekend, but he is going to be supposedly parading vice presidential shortlist people in front of people with deep pockets, in the Republican Party.
So you can buy your place on the ticket. Is that what you're saying?
You think Kristi Noem is still in the running after
shooting her dog?
Her dog is, though, I think.
Might be doing a better job.
I saw the Q&A on on JD Vance, who wants to be there. And it was great with Caitlin Collins was saying, like, wait a second, you saw what he did to his last vice president.
Exactly.
And,
Yeah.
and Vance tried to say that, well, he was never in any danger. Oh, yeah. I mean,
He brought out the gallows. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I read an extensive interview with Pence, and I'll never get that time back. But and Pence was saying that the reason he didn't want to leave and get in that car with Secret Service agents was he thought, and this could be true, but I don't believe it. It could be that if he left, then how long would that vote have been delayed? Because he had to be there for the certification, right?
Right. Right.
But I've also heard, and I know people in the Secret Service family that have told me that if you don't know the people in a situation like that, they tell you don't get in the car.
Yeah.
Don't leave your group to go to another group if you're not familiar with that in a moment like this. So he could have been worried about his own life. I mean, they were, he did know, by the way, and he knew he had heard the chants. That's how close he was. He could hear Hang Mike Pence.
Damn.
That's great. Can you imagine living through that? That is just insane.
Well, one last one is, first of all, I'm really proud of this. That apparently Eric Swalwell called Marjorie Taylor Greene Dairy Queen to her face, which I exploded with joy. And I heard this but this was through Carolyn, who was trying to book this for us, who was trying to get Eric on our next show. And it was talking to his people and said, by the way, tell Chip that he passed it along and said, hey, Dairy Queen.
Oh, that's funny. That is funny.
And for those who don't know, that's what Chip
That's what
has
exactly.
been calling
No,
her for a
I
long
alternate
time.
between calling her Waffle House and Cracker Barrel too. So of the three, but she could be in the administration. I mean,
Yeah.
Stephen Miller is going to run state or some probably something more so you can actually attack U.S. citizens more frequently. But I mean, if you can imagine, there's not going to be any more Espers or John Kelly or Rex Tillerson in this if he's elected. It's going to be crazy people. Marjorie Taylor Greene will have a cabinet position. I have no doubt.
Yeah.
Think about that.
I'm concerned that the dumbing down of America is continuing. If you haven't seen the movie Idiocracy, I highly recommend it. It's almost like a horror movie now. It's just meant to be a comedy, but if you watch it now, it's like a horror. That's happening now.
Yeah. Down to the shoes. Down to
Terrifying.
the shoes. It's
All
crazy.
right, before we go, a couple of things we're planning in the near future. In addition to some more podcasts and of course more of these opinion editorials that we love, and Nikki's going to be doing one soon again. Justin and I are going to be going to Chicago for the convention.
Oh, fun. Nice.
And who knows what kind of nightmare that'll be. It could be like 1968 all again. And for all of you that, well, none of you were alive in 68, but I was.
I was born in 1968.
You were born in 68, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a pivotal year for me as a young kid. And I lived outside of DC. I saw DC burn after King was killed. And I saw my father, a cop cry when Bobby Kennedy was killed. And my sister's boyfriend was killed in Vietnam. It was an incredible year. And it was capped off by the fall of the convention. The summer of the convention in Chicago to elect, again, Bobby Kennedy was, it was Hubert Humphrey, but Bobby Kennedy probably would have been the presidential nominee in 68, probably would have defeated Nixon, and who knows what would have happened, but he was assassinated by Sirhan Sirhan in a Los Angeles ballroom that summer. And it feels like 1968 in some ways, 2024. And, but the good news is that the year ended on Christmas Eve with the Apollo 8 going around to the dark side of the moon. And everybody, myself included, thought this is going to end bad because we lost, for like 10 minutes, we couldn't contact them. And when they came back around and said Houston, everybody felt like, hey, you know what? It's going to be okay. So on that note, I feel like, moving forward that we have that potential. How many people love Nikki? I'm a big fan. I hope you guys out there.
Oh, yeah.
Big fans of Nikki Medoro.
I'm a fan of myself. Thank you.
Yes. And so she'll be with me on Fridays here when we do this show. So, and we do appreciate, and I apologize for not getting to all your comments on future shows. We will spend more time speaking directly to your comments and, your thoughts, obviously, everybody wants to be heard, and we want to be part of that. We do. We love Nikki. Brooklyn Dad, congratulations again.
Yes.
Look forward to your upcoming podcast as well, and as well as you, Justin. Keep us all afloat, my friend. Thank you.
The Defiant, the Defiant podcast, wherever podcasts are found.
There you go.
D. All right. I'm Chip Franklin. Again, Nikki Medoro, Justin Horwitz. Again, the one and only Brooklyn Dad, Defiant. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
I can handle things. I'm smart.
We shall overcome. Yes, we can.
Person, woman, man, camera, TV.
What the f*** is wrong with you?